Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Heroes in a Half Shell, Turtle Power. Oh, this is Mr. Hornsby 3. This is the Mr. Hornsby 3 show. And yes, by the opening song, yes, I am finally going to do it. Never done it before on YouTube. I've never done it at all. This will be the first time ever that I am going to review Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1987 cartoon. I was going to talk about the biggest mistake they made. It has nothing to do with how they started with the tone. It has to do with what they did toward the end of the run. But Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out in 1987, lasted till 1996. 10 frickin' seasons. I mean, 10 frickin' seasons. And look, a lot of people love the old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. I like the old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon as well, but I think the 2003 one's probably the best one. And if you want the best of both worlds out of them, you get the 2012 one. But, you know what? Let's get into the review of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1987. Now, I'm going to talk about every single season from season 1 all the way to season 10. So, starting with season 1, I believe season 1 was only like, what, a 5-parter? Now I get why people say Street Sharks was a freaking rip-off of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because the first Street Sharks season cassette was like 3 or 4 episodes. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles first season was 5 episodes. It's introducing the Turtles, introducing April, introducing Shredder, introducing Bebop Rocksteady, introducing Krang, all that. And season 1, I have to say, was one of the few seasons where they had a short season. Because not only did this show last 10 freaking seasons, there's a ton of episodes and quite a good number of seasons. So the first season, it's all about Shredder wanting revenge on the Turtles and, Hamato Yoshi, which is Splinter. And, we get Krang. I think it was like episode 2 or so where Krang gets introduced. But, oh man, season 1 was just like, they could have did a couple more episodes with season 1 to explain things a little bit better. But they explained it the best way they could. I think season 1, even though the other episodes have like even though other seasons have a ton of episodes in it, I think season 1 was probably the weakest of the out of all the seasons. But, you know what? 5 episodes, easy to get to. Then we get to season 2, which I believe was like 13 episodes, which that's a good number to have. And, so at the end of season 1, we get them battling with Krang and Shredder. They send the Technodrome back to Dimension X. They send Krang and Shredder and all of them to Dimension X as well. And then after that, that's the end of that season. Then we get to season 2, which, season 2 is where we see a lot of the more popular characters revealed in the show. I think, like, Leatherhead was revealed in this, Rat King, and a couple of the main characters. The main villains. But, season 2, 13 episodes, pretty good, short. It ends with Shredder and Krang getting out of Dimension X with the Technodrome. But then the Turtles send them to the center of the Earth. It seemed like every season ended with the Turtles doing something to the Technodrome that would cause that would cause Shredder and Krang to have to think of another plan to get out of they get out of one predicament, the Turtles put them in another predicament. Pretty much how it went throughout the whole freaking show. Up until season Up until season 8, which I'll talk about season 8 when I get to it. But, you know, season 2 introduced a lot of the characters, and it ends with, like I said, Krang and Shredder and all them getting out of Dimension X. They're back in the Earth, but the Turtles then send them to the center of the Earth, and we get, then we get the final battle. Yeah. And yeah, I'm also gonna, you know, talk about so many other goofier things. They, you know, how goofy it was, how goofy they made Shredder and freaking Krang look. But it was a typical Saturday morning cartoon type thing. But anyway, let's get to season 3, because season 3, unbelievably, was 40 freaking 7 seasons. 40 freaking 7 seasons. I mean, not 40 freaking 7 episodes. I'm like, what the hell? Why is this so freaking many episodes in this one season? But again, and unlike the other seasons, this season didn't end with the final battle with Shredder and Krang and the Technodrome and all that. It was, I guess, something making fun of frickin' Pee Wee Herman. It's an episode about him because Krang and Shredder, they get out of Dimension X, they get out of the frickin', they get out of the, center of the Earth. But then I believe the Turtles sent them to Antarctica. I'm not sure. Might have been season 5 where they got sent to Antarctica. But one of those seasons they got sent to Antarctica. And then there's another season where they get sent back to Dimension X. I think it was in Antarctica at the end of season 4. And then they got sent to Dimension X. I don't know, or they got sent back to Dimension X. Who knows, you know. I just watched all 10 seasons. And, you know, that's a lot to process and a lot to think about. But yeah, especially with the 47 freaking episodes that freaking season 3 had. I mean, shoo-wee. You know, to do an episode, to do a season with that many episodes when the first 2 seasons were pretty short. I mean, one was a 5 episode run, the other was 13 episodes, and then you go into 47. Now, season 5, thankfully, was like 30-something episodes, but it was like still over 30-something episodes. I thought it was like 38 or 39 episodes. And like I said, that one ends with them getting sent back to Dimension X or back to either got sent back to Dimension X or they got sent to Antarctica. So I don't know. Then we get to season 6. And, you know, season 6 I think was like only like 20 something episodes. And then, you know, they get out again. They get out of Antarctica or Dimension X. They're fighting. But the first half of season 6 might have been the first half of season 7. I think it was the first half of season 7. I know. Season 6 I think was based between seasons 3 and 4. And, like, the Turtles are on vacation, all that stuff, and, you know, Shredder and Krang got put in the river, or the lake. I think at the end of season 5, yeah. I don't know, it's a crazy, I can't, but yeah. Or they got put in the lake at the end of season 6, I don't know. But yeah, I think it was at the end of season 6. But anyway, now I think season 6 was like the last full season of episodes. Then I think season 7, the first half of season 7, which I think was like 26 episodes. First half of it's just, you know, episodes of them on vacation between season 3 and 4. Anyway, Shredder and them get back out. Actually, yeah, I think it was season 7, yeah. First half was vacation stuff. Between season 3 or 4. Then when they started getting toward the end of season 7, that's when they got into the other stuff. Shredder and Krang almost take over the freaking world. But the Turtles beat them again. And, the Technodrome, they decided to send the Technodrome back to Dimension X, but Shredder, Krang, and Bebop and Rocksteady are still stuck on Earth. And I'm like, well, you know, that should have been the end of Shredder and them, as far as, you know, the villains of the show. But then we get to season 8. Season 8, they totally switched things around. They started out with a new intro, all that. They had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant, and they were flipping back, you know, scenes from, you know, flipping back and forth between scenes from the cartoon and the freaking movie. Only the first movie, they didn't. And by this point, movie 2 and 3 were already out. They just showed stuff from the first movie. And season 8 is where they kind of changed the look of the Turtles, April, Casey, and all them. I think the only ones that had the same look was Shredder, Krang, Bebop, and Rocksteady. Something that shot, well, I'll talk about it when I get into it, because, you know, I'm also going to talk about some of the villains that got introduced in all the seasons. And when they got introduced in the seasons and all that stuff, you know, I'll talk about all that. And I'll talk about some other things. Then I'll give my review of the 1987 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. But, yeah, I mean, season 8, first few episodes, the Turtles are going after Shredder, Krang and them, and then we get, like, Lord Draken. We get him in a few episodes. Turtles beat Lord Draken. Shredder and Krang take over the facility they were planning on taking over. And if it wouldn't have been for the Turtles, they wouldn't have been able to take over that. So then we see Shredder and Krang at the end of season 8 pretty much go back to Dimension X and stay gone. The Turtles, like, beat them. But then we get to season 9. And then we get Lord Dreg. Which, Lord Dreg is a pretty good villain. They made him out to be more competent than they did Shredder and Krang. And even freaking Lord Draken did not look that... I mean, because, like, the first episode of season 8, they're fighting Lord Draken and they just beat him easily. Well, Shredder and Krang and them get away, but Lord Draken gets captured, which is crazy. But yeah, season 8, they send Shredder and Krang back to Dimension. Or they just go back to Dimension X because they're done dealing with the Turtles. So then we get, like I said, season 9 is all about Lord Dreg, and Lord Dreg's freaking trying to conquer the universe. The people have turned on the Turtles again. Because, you know. And, the last 3 seasons were only, like, what, 8 episodes? Because, like, I don't know, I think, season 9 was probably, like, yeah, I think they all were 8 episodes. So, I don't know, I think season 8 might have been 6 episodes, and then 9, and 10 were freaking 8 episodes. I don't know. But, you know, Turtles win. They also changed the look of the Rat King and all that stuff, too, in the season 8. And like I said, they try to make it darker and, you know, more like the comics were. But, you know, by that point, yeah, done had 7 seasons of the campy episodes of Ninja Turtles. So, I don't know why they decided to try to go darker when we got to season 8, 9, and 10. If they had implemented maybe a darker tone and, like season 2 or something, that'd be a different story. And, you know, at least Shredder and them were a little more competent in season 8 than they were in all the other seasons of the show, from 1 to 7. But anyway, so yeah, the Turtles, you know, Lord Dreg at first makes him seem like he's a good guy and all that to all the people in New York, and everybody thinks he's a hero, and yada yada yada. Turtles are the ones looking like the bad guys, but then the Turtles finally revealed Drake as a villain, and then after that, the next 2 seasons, all Drake's trying to do is trying to figure out a way to take down the Turtles. And ultimately, they beat the there was times where Drake did beat the Turtles, but the Turtles, found a way back out. Also, with season, I think it's 8, 9, and 10, they started doing a thing where, the Turtles' mutation was causing them side effects or whatever, like they were devolving into mindless, fighting machines and all that, instead of what they had been in the prior 7 seasons. But yeah, the last 3 seasons they had that plot hole. But I think they finished it up in season 9. So then when we got to season 10, the Turtles were just focused on beating Lord Drake, which they did. But in season 9, they did bring back Shredder and Krang for like one final hurrah. They teamed up with Drake, but they really weren't teaming up with Drake because they ended up betraying Drake, and Drake was going to take their powers, all that stuff, all that crazy stuff. But like I said, season 9, Turtles finally finished Drake. They beat Drake once and for all, and it involved using Krang's droid body. But we don't see Krang in any of them in the final episode. You just see Krang's droid body. They go to Dimension X, they go to the Technodrome, and they go through a few scavengers, and that's it. Then they get Krang's droid body, which they had changed the look of that. That was the first time you had seen Krang's droid body since the end of season 7, because he didn't have it on. Which is kind of weird, because at the end of season 7, they beat the Turtles. Krang was in his droid body, but the Turtles finally destroyed the Technodrome once and for all. But, they didn't show Krang with his droid body in season 8, which is kind of weird because he had it in that final episode of season 7. I don't know what happened. He's in a Bubble Walker in season 8, and then in season 9 he was in the Bubble Walker when they brought him back too. So I don't know. But yeah, Turtles beat Lord Drake. Now they introduced a lot of characters, like they had the Frog Brothers introduced. That was early, I think it was like season 1, the Frog Brothers were introduced. Season 2, we got Slash, Leatherface, or Leatherhead, and all that stuff. Yeah, so I think season 2 might have introduced Casey Jones. I could be wrong. Maybe he was introduced in season 3. But, all the campiness and that from seasons 1 through 7 I thought was pretty good and still enjoyable. And I can see why it lasted as long as it did. I was a fan of the show when I was a kid. But, yeah. As an adult, I'm watching it, I'm like, man, this cartoon was really, really campy. Really campy. But overall, Rat King was also introduced, I think, like in season 1. Chrome Dome and all that, Metalhead. All those characters were introduced in early seasons. I think Chrome Dome they brought in season 4, I don't know. But, overall, I think the 1987 Ninja Turtle cartoon is still a really good cartoon. Even though I find it more campier now that I'm an adult in that, I still enjoyed watching every episode of the show. Took me back to those times when I was a kid watching the cartoon. But one of the main mistakes they made, I kind of hinted at one of my critiques of it is trying to switch the tone from season 8, 9, and 10 from what the rest of the show had done. Yeah, they still had some campy, silly stuff in the freaking 8, 9, and 10 seasons. But, if it ain't broke, why fix it? And the campiness of the Ninja Turtle cartoon was still... Kids were still enjoying watching that. Because... But... I honestly gotta say, that's one of the weaknesses of the show. Another weakness is, I know it's supposed to be campy and silly, but you could have made your main villains a little more. Give them at least 1 or 2 victories. I mean, people talk about how G.I. Joe was campy in that, but in G.I. Joe, Cobra and them still had a few victories that made them look a little more competent than what they had seemed like in the rest of the show. Same with He-Man and all them other cartoons from the 80s and the 90s that did all the campiness until like stuff like X-Men and Batman and all that came out. But should have made the villains a bigger threat. I think 2003 Turtles and 2012 Turtles are the ones that made Shredder a bigger threat than what he was. But, you know, and, you know, 2003 show really didn't have Krang unless you want to say, well, maybe after he was the Ultron Shredder, he became freaking Krang. And that's kind of what I thought was going to happen when they started doing the One True Shredder arc in the 2003 show. Like, oh, well, then he's going to be the freaking Shredder, and then Ultron Shredder is now going to become Krang or something, and they're going to team up. But that didn't happen. And I'll talk about that whenever I review those shows. But, overall, I still like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1987. I'll give it a 8 out of 5. Or, not 8. I mean, I'll give it a 4 out of 5. I forgot my freaking scaling. I don't know. But, you know, I like the show. I think it's a good show. Yeah, it's a little bit campy when you watch it as an adult. But, you know, you can tell that was a cartoon that was made for the kids. And a lot of kids enjoyed it until Power Rangers came along. But I think they made a mistake trying to switch the tone late in the series because, you know, you had all the campy, goofy stuff, all the silly monsters, all the freaking incompetent villains and all that stuff in season freaking 1 through 7, and then you decide we're going to... It's kind of like how 2003 was a more serious toned cartoon, and then toward the end they went the campy route of the old cartoon. Kind of like how the movies with part 1, it was dark, grim and all that stuff. Then part 2 they wanted it to be more like the cartoon, and part 3, I don't know what they were trying to do with part 3, but you know, it is what it is. But yeah. Show's still a great show. One of the greatest cartoons ever made. I can't believe it was 10 freaking seasons long, though. Because at that point, Power Rangers was blowing up everywhere. Like, 93, 94, 95, it was mainly Mighty Morphin. Because I think after Mighty Morphin, a lot of people didn't watch too much. People didn't watch stuff like Zeo and, you know, Turbo and In Space. And, you know, all the Power Ranger shows that came after Mighty Morphin. I think Mighty Morphin was mainly the one beating the Ninja Turtles in popularity. But, you know, and you know, when you see people talk about Power Rangers, they always go to Mighty Morphin. It was good when it was Mighty Morphin, and then, you know, all the rest, blah. And though we had good shows like In Space, and a few other great shows that came after Mighty Morphin, but, you know, it's what it is. But yeah, I give it a 4 out of 5. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Although I did not care too much for the last... That's what keeps it from being a 5 out of 5. The last 3 seasons, them changing the tone was just kind of dumb. They wanted to go with the movie. They wanted to be more serious like the comics and all that. If that was the case, then you should have started out with that instead of giving us 7 seasons of what you gave us. And then, you know... But yeah... You gave us the 7 seasons of what you gave us. You should have stuck with that formula. But, you know, I guess they decided to change it too because, you know, like I said, by that point, X-Men was out, Spider-Man, Batman, animes with darker tones than that cartoon was out by that point. Yeah. A lot of things were out that had darker tones than what the 1987 Ninja Turtles cartoon came out. I will say that's probably the only cartoon that's ever gotten longevity, probably outside of Looney Tunes, that's got a longevity of having 10 frickin' seasons. But, yeah, they should have not had so many frickin' episodes in Season 3. Season 3 was like the worst season to get through. Because there was like 47 frickin' episodes. I can handle 30 some. I mean, and 4 was, yeah, it was the same thing. Like... freaking over 30 episodes, and you're into the point where it's freaking already, what, the 4th season? Now, yeah, I know, season 1 and 2 weren't that many episodes, because season 1 was 5 episodes, season 2 was 13 episodes, so I get why they want to put more longer episodes, because of the popularity of the cartoon, but Jesus Christ, 40 frickin' 7. I think 26 would have been a perfect number to do the rest of the season. Just do 26 episodes for the rest of the seasons, and that would have been good. And you know, that's one thing I did like about season 8, 9, and 10 is they did have shorter episodes. 6 and 2 8 episode seasons. That was way better than frickin' 40 frickin' 7 episodes. But overall, still enjoyed the cartoon. Now, you know, and I watched 2003 Turtles, I think it was last year. 2012, I don't know. Now I gotta watch, you know, now that I finished 87, watch Turtles Forever. But I will say one thing. I think when they did Turtles Forever, and mixed the 2003 show with the 87 cartoon, you know, I was like, yeah, when I first watched it, I'm like, yeah, you know, that's kind of how silly the Turtles were. And they had really campy and all the goofy stuff that happened in the original show. But I think they kind of disrespected and buried the 87 show a little bit in Turtles Forever. And when I rewatch Turtles Forever, I'll probably talk about that because I'll probably review that movie again. But, yeah. And the perspective. They kind of disrespected and buried the 87 Turtles cartoon because they made Utah Shredder look way better than Shredder and Krang combined. And that. And, you know. But, you know, Bebop and Rocksteady did be the ones that accidentally killed the freaking Neutron Shredders. Yeah. Anyway. But, yeah. And I do like the fact that, toward the end of season 7, we did get Toka and Razor in the cartoon. I wish we would have got more Toka and Razor in the cartoon, but we didn't. Yeah. And a lot of villains that a lot of people remember from the old cartoon really didn't show up till later seasons half the time. Half, like Chrome Dome didn't show up till a later season. You know, Slash and them didn't show up till later seasons. A lot of memorable villains didn't show up till later seasons. Man, I know Rat King, he was in the show from the start, kinda. And even popular characters didn't show up till later seasons, such as, you know, the Turtleoid and all that stuff. Casey Jones didn't show up till later seasons. And a few other characters. Also, you know, I didn't know they had another character in the Turtles animated series, another human character to help the Turtles. But they had Carter. Which was probably, you know, a way to make him like Keno, just, you know, not call him Keno from the Part 2 movie, or I don't know. But yeah, anyway, that'll do it. Let me know your guys' thoughts on the 1987 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. I still like it, but, you know, I realize as an adult, it was awful campy and that, but you know what? It's still enjoyable. If you're going to judge a show on their campiness, then you got to judge all the cartoons from the 80s and 90s on campiness. So, yeah. But, you know, the Ninja Turtle cartoon, 87, leaned into it a lot more than a lot of those other cartoons did. Because some of their villains and some of those other 80s cartoons that were kind of competent, when the main villains for Turtles were kind of incompetent. But anyway, that'll do it. Tune in Wednesday for my underrated horror movies. Don't forget to check out. And then Friday I'll have a live stream playthrough of WWE 2K25. And I'll be talking about my problems and issues with that game. And talk about some of the stuff they took out that they shouldn't have taken out, but they did anyway. Talk about some things they should add in the next game and all that stuff. And, you know, just, you know. Yeah. But anyway, that'll do it. Catch you guys later. Peace out.